So today we have another double header for our critical conversations. We're going to be starting with Phil talking about the strategic direction work that's happening, and then Peter Shea, our AI guru, is going to talk to us about the plan for AI, the draft of the plan that he has prepared to share. As always, this meeting is being recorded, so if you need to look back or if any of your colleagues were unable to make today, they can access a recording of this next week. We also have asked that if you could make sure that your name, your Zoom name, is your exact name so we know who you are and there's no duplicates, that would be fantastic. Chat is going to be turned off while President Sisson and Peter are sharing so that we can give them our full attention, and then we'll make sure to open up chat afterwards so that people can ask questions. We love it if you just raise your hand and unmute yourself when called upon. Otherwise, you can just type it into chat and we'll share it first come, first serve. I do want to make a note that we do have two documents that we're going to be sharing. So these are documents that should help you understand and get some insight into what both folks are going to be talking about today. It's a lot of text. So those links were shared while you were in the waiting room, and I'll share them again to you shortly so that you have access. Phil, take it away.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you as always. And great to see everybody. Thank you for being part of this conversation this afternoon. We promise that not every critical conversation in the future will be a double header. We just lost some traction on time and wanted to make sure that you had exposure to some very important things that are going on, including sort of the updates to the strategic plan and also the AI plan that Peter and his committee have been working diligently on. I did want to share that I hope that people enjoyed hearing Chum's I Am poem at Professional Day. It was rather moving. It was even more moving to be out in Portland, Oregon, to hear her deliver that to the crowd, which she did on Tuesday morning and did an amazing job. And I think she had what I would call a student transformative experience in leadership while she was out there. And so I want to thank the staff team that did everything they could to prepare her nomination and the opportunity that she had. I think it was an amazing one and amazing recognition for the college. The college also received its Leader College designation. I don't know if you can see this. I don't know. It's me and the camera holding it up in front of you. But anyway, we'll share that with you. Really excited that all of the work that we've been doing with Achieving the Dream has paid off in terms of results and data. And because of that, the college has been recognized as a Leader College. And that recognition will last for 3 years. And so we'll continue to be able to have access to a number of services, additional services from ATD, and really we're among about 14 other institutions that had that recognition from across the country. So really proud of the work that you have all done and excited about the path ahead and working closely with Achieving the Dream, which has really made a difference for the work that we do for success for our students. I also want to mention that there are some folks who are not with us today for this critical conversation. It's an unusual one because it's on a Monday and because it was unscheduled. So I particularly thank all of you that are here today. But we have two committees that are in the midst of their initial interviews for the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs and the Vice President for Enrollment Services and Student Affairs. So those interviews are actually happening during the day. And so we have some folks that are not on this critical conversation today, but I want to thank them for their work. And I want to remind all of you that before the end of the week, you will be receiving a communication from my office. That communication will give you a broader sense of the ways for you to participate in the campus visits that will be coming up soon. The first will be the Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs search. There will be either 3 or 4 or 5 days in that first week when we return from spring break. And we'll send out this notice, and we're going to give you some instructions. Essentially, as I've told you, these will be opportunities for you to participate in-person, no Zoom, in-person only open forums. The candidates will be on both campuses, so there'll be an open forum in Bedford and in Lowell. I don't think the college has ever done that before. And an opportunity for you to participate. And in that, the night before, probably about, I want to say around 4:30, approximately, you will receive the cover letter, the resume, and the statement from each of those candidates the night before so that you are prepared for the open forums that following afternoon. If you want to take a look at those, and we'll have copies available at the actually open forums as well. As I've identified for you, the candidates will have a chance to make an opening statement about their background and why they're interested particularly in coming to Middlesex. And then we'll spend most of our time in a Q&A period with those candidates. We have a QR code that will allow you to enter in your reactions to that particular candidate on that particular day. So the forum will happen in the afternoon, and you will have until midnight that night to be able to complete a SurveyMonkey that asks you some very simple questions about strengths and areas of concern for that particular candidate that you see that day. And that information will be coming directly to me. I have the burden of identifying who our next vice presidents will be, but your input is incredibly valuable to me. And so I appreciate you taking the time to participate in the open forum, ask engaging questions. As I said many times, those folks are interviewing us as much as we are interviewing them. And so excited for your participation, and then, of course, for your feedback, which then, because it goes into SurveyMonkey, all of your comments will get identified by SurveyMonkey, and I'll be able to close it out, and then I'll have all that information available for me for each of the candidates that you will see in person the week after Professional Day. So that's the week that we're going to do our Provost and VP for Academic Affairs. And then we'll send out another notification with similar instructions a little later on, a couple weeks, when we get to the Vice President for Enrollment Services and Student Affairs. So keep on the lookout for those letters and communication, and I really appreciate you taking the time to participate in those open forums. Again, everyone has a perspective on these positions. Your perspective is important, and your feedback is important. And I really appreciate you taking the time to not only participate, attend, and ask questions, but also provide feedback to me about your reactions to each of those candidates. Today's topics are both incredibly important, and they're rather text heavy. So I'm going to try and be as expeditious as I can. As for the college's strategic plan, as you well know, we have been on a journey for the last, I want to say, 9 months to a year to react to some very significant changes in our environment, both at the state level with Mass Reconnect, Free Community College, the expansion of Mass Grant Plus, the efforts around apprenticeships, the effort around what's happening with accommodations, lots of changes in our environment, some of which we can respond to, and some of which have been imposed upon us by the state government and the federal government, including some initial executive orders from the president around DEI, and some sensitivity around language. Our strategic plan for 22 to 27 is in many ways, and would be, a target for the federal government in terms of some of the language that we use. And what we've talked about is trying to be more sensitive to taking a look at the external environment, both at the federal level and the state level, and some things that we're learning locally, along with what we focused on the last couple of professional days, to really move forward with a pivot in our strategic plan. And when I say pivot, I mean the idea that a lot of the central work that we've done in the previous plan has all been documented and is available on the college's website for you to see the amazing work that's been done across the college. It is still recognized at the college's strategic plan at this time, but that in order to bring us into the future and to be sensitive to the work that we need to be doing, then we need to be upgrading the language that we use in the strategic plan. That will eventually probably mean that we'll need to upgrade and take a look at our mission statement and our vision statement. But for now, it's important to have the plan in place so that we can begin to actualize that plan. So I want to go over the basics of that plan with you today. And I want to thank you, because our Fall Professional Day was devoted to getting feedback from all of you about the things that you thought were important that there were missing in the college's strategic plan. Not everything has been determined as being strategic. That doesn't necessarily mean that the areas that you identified in the last Professional Day aren't things that we have to work on. Many things have been doled out to particular deans or departments or parts of the PLC or the SLC to really take a look at. But we have to make sure that the plan is really strategic and high level in meeting the advancement of our RISE metrics that you have all become somewhat familiar with in terms of early college momentum for our students to make sure that we are able to retain and make sure that they graduate. So Beth, you can go ahead and throw up the first slide if you would. It is more of a general overview, as I would say that Beth's going to put in the chat and already has the availability of the entire draft of the plan. And I would continue to say that we're still drafting. So our previous strategic plan had 4 pillars to it. This plan has 3. We've condensed a couple of the pillars from the previous plan. And while I would say that we have become more sensitive to the words, the work still continues. So I think I've said that multiple times, and I will continue to say it, that we know the population that we serve here at Middlesex. We know the mission of this institution. We know what each and every one of us is committed to every day to change the lives of students. That is vibrantly a part of who we are and what we will do. The words that we choose to do it, and the subtext will be critically important going forward as we are beholden to the federal government, not only for Pell Grants, but now for workforce Pell Grants, and also for any federal grants. We've tried to wean our way away from opportunities with the federal government on occasion when necessary. But at the same time, the federal government is still an important part of the equation of how we determine work or initiatives or innovations at the campus. And so we can't ignore the changes that have been imposed by the federal government. At the same time, we have to continue to stay strong in our mission. And I think all of you know my commitment to that. So I think it goes without saying. We have a title for this. It is a working title. The whole thing's working, but I think we're getting closer to the finish line, which is why I wanted you all to see this and hear about this. And we've talked about pathways to a vibrant community. So this goes back to community vibrancy, although that is an ATD, Achieving the Dream term, really about being able to fundamentally go back to the basics of serving our community and asking the questions both inside and out. Who are we serving and who are we leaving behind? And how do we make sure that we communicate with those communities to make them more vibrant? And we know that this is true because when our students are successful, then their families are successful, and then their communities are successful. And all of that success is not just about crossing the stage and getting a degree or a certificate or even a micro-credential. It's about economic mobility. People go to college to make their lives better, to make their family lives better, and we are part and parcel of that success for those students, whether they go on and transfer to go to a 4-year institution to be able to take that associate's degree and parlay that into a bachelor's degree that allows them to have the economic mobility to start in a job that requires a baccalaureate level of education, or whether they're going directly out into the workforce, which is a significant number of the programs that we have today at Middlesex that we've devised over time to be very workforce ready. We also know the federal government has really asked us to focus on that. And in fact, we're seeing that more and more, not only within the state, but at the federal level, the opportunity to talk about the importance of being an economic engine for the state and for the country in terms of making sure that individuals have the right training, the right education to be able to get out there and get a good paying job and immediately be able to contribute to the economic vitality of their communities. That's all imposed within what we've talked about here. On Professional Day, I talked about the fact that we've done significant work based on a previous book called Redesigning America's Community Colleges, based on data from the Community College Research Center that really led us along the journey of pathways, our pathways maps, our academic maps, our changes to policy, our emphasis on getting students who are full-time to complete within that period of time, and also those students who are part-time to be able to make sure that they stay on an academic plan that allows them to complete and that eventually contributes to their economic mobility. There are 3 pillars to this plan. Strategic Direction 1 really talks about transformative student support and engagement. And this is all about making sure that we can reinvent and reinvigorate the student experience here at the college to make sure that students are academically prepared, because we are an academic institution that believes in excellence. We know the quality of our students. We know the transformative experience they have when they come to us, no matter how prepared they are. But how do we increase that academic preparedness? And how do we make sure through our work in general education and the work of our courses and our programmatic courses and outcomes, how do we make sure that those students are ready to be able to be academically prepared to transfer or to go out into the workforce? We also at the same time know that our students come from a variety of backgrounds and that they are struggling. Many of our students have struggled with academic preparedness and well-being since the time of COVID. We are seeing that coming from the middle schools and the high schools in terms of their preparation, but also their mental resilience and their ability to deal with the struggles that come with coming to a community college and actually having competing priorities. So holistic well-being is incredibly important to us. And in fact, we've invested at the college in wellness and increased counseling areas, opportunities for students to be able to speak with folks and access resources that they need to make sure that they take care of themselves physically and emotionally, as well as academically, to be the best students that they could possibly be. We want our students, because we know all the data tells us that they have to feel like they are connected and they belong. We know that our underserved communities have oftentimes felt marginalized or left out of the work that we are engaged in. That happens everywhere from dual enrollment to adult students feeling that they're unprepared, no matter what ethnic background they come from, no matter whether they're an international student or a domestic student. Those students need to feel connected to the institution. And every single one of you on this Zoom is part of that connection. We know that if they feel connected to at least one other person at this institution, then that's enough to help guide them through and get them over the finish line, to move through those early momentum metrics, to be able to complete entry-level courses, take advanced courses, and know that we care, that we've got them, and that they can succeed. And the most important piece is that we talk about ensuring success for all learners. We don't screen out students anymore by their ability. All students come to a community college because we're an open access institution, and we have a commitment to everyone that enters our doors to make sure that we work hard as they do, or even harder, to help them achieve their goals so that they are successful, that they can define success any way they want. Micro-credential, a course, a certificate, an associate's degree, an opportunity to transfer to a public or a private institution. However they're defining success, we have to find a pathway for each and every one of those students to ensure that success. So that strategic direction number 1 is really about making sure that students feel supported and fully engaged. The second strategic direction is really about future-ready learning and career pathways. We've had enough professional days lately to know that it is more essential than ever, to quote actually from the title of the book from our spring professional day, that community college pathways to educational and career success are more critical than they've ever been in our entire time that we've worked in community colleges. And some of us, that has been decades. Making sure that students are ready for whatever comes next, whether it be transfer or career, and that they are clear from the very beginning that we are here to support them, to help them make decisions about what they plan to do. And we've learned a lot about how we have to front load some of that, how we have to make sure that career access to information, both through our website and timely regional information, how much is somebody going to make in a particular field, what's the educational requirements of that field, are all part and parcel of everything we need to do with students from the moment they enter the institution. And that has to be stackable. That has to be an opportunity for them to have the entire experience. It is a career journey. While they're with us, that they need access to a career integrated learning experience, and that every student deserves that to validate what they want to study. And also the opportunity to really focus on what they want to do. Students oftentimes, as we heard from Hannah Lar, the students often come in with a couple of different priorities that may look very different in terms of academic majors that they're interested in. But then how do we dig a little deeper and do proactive advising to make sure that they have the right choices of the right courses they're going to let them attend initially to all of those opportunities, and to dig a little deeper about how they may be able to bring their interests together into an appropriate career field. I mean, many of you know that we all have degrees in things that we are not currently working in areas that we are not, we did not necessarily prepare for. But we wanted to make sure that our students have an opportunity to really understand what that pathway is. So we have to talk about redefining the learning experience. And that falls to all of us, because we have faculty that are educating students inside of the classroom, and we have professional staff and administrators that are engaging with students outside of the classroom. And then in all of that, we have to figure out how we can be successful in integrating technology. And that includes technology that they will use every day, including artificial intelligence, which is growing in leaps and bounds, and that we have an artificial intelligence plan that is there to help support faculty and staff in moving towards that goal. That we need to make sure that they are career ready. Our gen ed courses need to be able to respond to that. Our courses have to have built-in opportunities for students to learn skills so that they're ready to go into the workforce, whether it's now or after they complete their baccalaureate degree. And that we don't do any of this alone, and that only through strong community partnerships can we really prepare students. Partnerships with business, partnerships with mass hire, partnerships with nonprofits, partnerships with software companies, partnerships with a lot of opportunities that we had never thought of before, of how we connect students to job shadowing, internships, apprenticeships, etc. So those community partnerships, again, are critical to how we interact with our community in order to prepare our students for the best experience they can possibly have. And as I said, we cannot do that alone any longer, and that students have to prepare for evolving workforce needs. We are not just preparing students for the job or the program that they're in today, but we're also doing the gargantuan task of preparing them for the changes that are going to happen in the workforce in the next few years. And you can already see those changes taking place across the country. The third direction is really about making sure that the college is strong, that our growth is sustainable, although it has to keep a pace with what is happening in the external environment, which is rapid, but we have always done that, and that we have to continue to innovate as an institution. We will not survive doing the status quo. We've always been an institution that innovates. In fact, when I describe Middlesex to other people, and I describe the people who work here, I describe them as educators and innovators and entrepreneurs, people who know what students need and are doing everything they can to be creative to get to them what they need, whether it be skills or resources or plans, but that we're an institution that innovates, and we will continue to need to do that. The Board of Higher Ed has added innovation as another priority. You're seeing that in the discussion of whether there's a 3-year baccalaureate, whether community colleges will be engaged in offering some of those 3-year baccalaureates. How do we make higher education more affordable through the continuation of free community college? All of those are recent policy innovations that are going to be really important for us to consider. 5 years ago, we didn't spend a lot of time talking about apprenticeships. We didn't talk about the world of work in a way that we are talking about it today, because we know that parents and students and adults that are retraining all demand that we are prepared to do that. And so we have to build a really resilient, and that means being able to tolerate change. The only constant is change, as we've talked about many times, that we have to be an institution that's financially stable. We've done a remarkable job at this institution, making sure that we can meet all of our needs, plan for the future, renovate for the future, develop new programs, add new faculty and staff, and do that in a responsible and financially stable environment. And we've done that. The institution is in better shape financially than it has been in a very, very long time, with reserves and opportunities for unrestricted funds to really renovate classrooms, recreate experiences, provide professional development, And so we need to take advantage of that to be able to contain our growth and at the same time meet the needs of the folks that work here. But we're going to also have to be technologically advanced as an institution. We cannot establish developing software and then waiting years before we advance that software. We're behind in a lot of areas. We have things that we need to do in order to make sure that we have all of the resources, the technology resources that are going to support us in our daily work and that are going to support our students, our faculty, and staff. So we need to, not just being able to keep up with the status quo, but we need to be technologically advanced, and that potentially will make all of our jobs easier because we want to prioritize efficiency. We want to make sure that we can get our jobs done in a more efficient manner, and that the talents that each of you bring to your job every day that comes to personal interaction and a deep commitment to our students is respected. And at the same time, some of the tasks that are more mundane become something that happens in another way, another fashion, that we're more efficient about how we use our time. We also want to make sure that it's equitable. So this is not about technology that only happens in one area of the college. It's not only about enrollment. It's not only about technology in advising and support for students. It's technology advancement across the institution that will be able to help our institution grow. And most importantly, the idea of transparency in all of our college operations. Why is it important for you to see the college's budget? Why it is important for you to be able to develop and be part of a budget process that allows you to request what you need in your own areas, and for us to find creative ways to be able to respond to that, whether it be through the college or through the foundation or through private donors. Just spent the morning with a private donor touring both campuses. And one of the things that they talk about all the time is how amazing it is that we work at an institution where so much is going on, that we serve such a diverse population in age and need, and that we do so with commitment and vibrancy and passion. And that is something that matters to people who want to invest money in the institution. And I'm so grateful that I work at an institution that does all of those things. So those are the three critical strategic directions for the new strategic plan. I just want to walk you through some of the basics, and you'll have a copy of this plan. Again, we are not here to sort of add things to the plan or subtract things to the plan. We're here to sort of inform you about where we've landed, about the strategic directions and areas that are going to be important based on what we're seeing in the external environment and what we've heard from all of you is important for students. So you can go to the next page, Beth. So again, maybe a little small for you to read, but each of these strategic directions have goals and objectives underneath them. The goals are clearly the larger areas that really respond to the direction. So you'll see in this first one, and we don't have to work through all the pages immediately, but goal A is to strengthen academic preparedness for all learners, to promote holistic well-being, to foster a strong sense of belonging, and that those pieces are all part and parcel of what we do to ensure student success here at the institution. And then within that, there are some critical areas that we have some work to do, and those are called objectives that really build on the amazing work that's already happening at the institution. So objective 1 is really about supporting dual enrollment and pre-collegiate and K-12 partnerships. We still have significant yield from a number of our partner high school institutions. That has changed not only from an admissions perspective, but also from the work that we are doing in dual enrollment and concurrent enrollment. That we have the NACEP, the National Association for Concurrent Enrollment Programs accreditation currently going on to show that we are an institution of excellence when it comes to dual enrollment. And there are a number of items there that are action steps that will take us a little further in expanding the support for dual enrollment and pre-collegiate K-12 partnerships, including the opportunity to really think about what could happen and some of the things that we have not discussed before here and how we can better serve that population. Because although that population of students is declining, it is still critical to the institution that students from area high schools come directly to a community college to get an associate's degree or a certificate or a training program, And they do that right out of high school, and oftentimes having completed multiple courses directly from their dual enrollment experience. How do we better serve those students? How do we keep them on a path? How do we graduate them in a shortened period of time? And how do we create more yields from the programs that we have developed on each of our 43 partner high schools where we have early college or concurrent enrollment? Objective 2 is really about strengthening the transition to college for everyone, not just for students coming out of high school, through an onboarding process, through bridge programs, which are programs that help students make transitions from one area of education or one opportunity area to another, and to make sure we focus on orientation and doing that in a way that really meets the career needs of our students, as we had a conversation recently in our professional development day. So this is about making sure that the strength that we've created through our IDS programs continues, and that the wonderful work that Deb and her faculty are doing continue, and that we continue to meet the ever-evolving needs of our students that are entering the institutions, to be able to really work more with our high school partners to include early college, but to really develop mentoring programs to make sure that there's more aspiration for those students who are currently in those programs. And how do we continue to speak not only to recruiting individuals, but recruiting families? Because what we learn all the time is that we are not only educating students, we are often working with students who are in a system, in a family student system that we have to make sure that we can attend to. And that we want to make sure that clarifying career goals and developing academic plans are front and center for every single student at the institution. You can take it to the next page. Objective 3 is really about redesigning a lot of our advising policies and practices to maximize student success. Our advising area does remarkable work with our students. They are dedicated professionals. And then we have to be able to use AI and other opportunities to identify students who need outreach, to be able to work very creatively with specific advising teams, populations, to be able to think about students at their checkpoints of 15, 30, and 45 credits, that we have to be prepared to respond to students who are coming from trauma-informed and culturally responsive practices that are so important to reaching and connecting to our students, and that we want to make sure that we integrate career exploration and planning throughout. Objective 4 is about strengthening and supporting multiple measures and guided self-placement with enhanced advising touch points. Gone are the days of one standardized test that's going to place a student in a course. Those days are long gone, and they're not successful. And in fact, that leads to students actually getting trapped in a cycle where they can't get into college level courses that they need. We've done great work, both in English and in math, in co-requisite work that really needs to be highlighted. And we want to make sure that students understand their pathway for placement options. And we want to make sure that we are constantly monitoring and analyzing what's happening with those placements to make sure they are successful. Objective 5 is really about developing coordinated pathways for our ESL and ELL students from pre-credit through degree completion. We have PAC, we have our Institute for English that we have. We have a lot of successful programs here to serve ESL, ELL, and we are surrounded by community partners that do an amazing job with that. How do we create bridge programs to make sure those students know that they have access to our academic courses and that they have an opportunity, although English may not be their first language, to succeed within a community college environment? Objective 6 is really about redesigning academic and pathway maps. We've known for a long time that the maps that we created many years ago are really strong, but they need revision, they need updating, they need career focus, and they may need an opportunity for us to discuss in academic departments and areas what students take first and whether the sequence of courses that we are recommending are appropriate. And more importantly, how do we create maps that are transfer academic maps that allow students who are going on to a four-year institution to have all the courses that they need, and that we create academic maps that are up to date and available and relevant to part-time students, which is such a huge part of our population. So a lot of changes need to happen to create academic maps because they have become important to our work. They're important to redesigning America's community colleges in terms of the gameplay that we've divided there, and also more essential than ever in the work that needs to be done in the future. Students need to be on a path. They need to know what they need to take. They need to be able to do it without excess credit and expense, and they need to know that every single one of those credits will be transferred to a four-year institution when they are needed, and that every single course that they take is relevant to the career that they're about to step into. Objective 7 on the next page. We're on goal B, promote holistic well-being. And here we've talked about the wonderful work that we've already done in terms of expanding mental health services and increasing resource visibility across the campuses so students know what's available to them, faculty and staff know how to refer them. And then also we need to continue to do what we did with William James a couple of years ago to enhance faculty staff training to support students in distress. It is critically important for us to be able to recognize those early warning signs and to be able to get students to the support that they need. And those referral pathways are noted under this objective, opportunities to really understand warning signs, to really be able to not only use our counselors on the ground on both campuses, but also and in our community partners, but also virtual mental health services for online and evening students, and also to expand partnerships with other community health providers. This is a critical time for us to make sure that our students have the kind of mental health support that they need. And that's happening at every institution across the country. It's happening in high schools. It is a critical part of what we know is so important to make students feel like they belong and connected and can actually accomplish the work. We know with new laws in Objective 2 that we need to move from an accessibility compliance to an accessibility culture. I think we've made great strides there. I think there's a tremendous sensitivity on the part of faculty and staff that all of our materials need to be accessible, and that even though there's a federal law that does this, Middlesex has a long-standing institutional history of doing this effectively. And in fact, we attract students with disabilities and students who have specific learner needs because we have become an institution that's known as welcoming, as supportive, and as a place where they know that they can get their goals accomplished through a variety of different avenues. And so it's really important for us to continue to build that accessibility culture, and doing that through training for faculty and onboarding, and to really take a look at our policies and practices that are really important to creating that accessibility culture. And Objective 3 is really about implementing strategies and best practices to more effectively serve the adult and post-traditional. So that's the term that a lot of folks are using now. I mean, all of our students, or most of our students, are adults by their very age, by the circumstance of their age, but the post-traditional students and online learners, because we know that significant population, almost 33% of our students are taking courses online almost exclusively, and that we have a significant adult population that we've been trying to attract through Mass Reconnect, people who are walking around with credits and no credential, or people who have had bad experiences with higher education institutions and are not completing a degree. So this is really about shoring up all of those things that help us do that, looking at credit transfer policies, creating policies and articulations with four-year institutions like our JUMP program with UMass Lowell, about how we really take a cold, hard look at our Fresh Start program that gives students a chance who were unsuccessful many years ago and are coming back after a series of years to come into a new academic program. How do we receive them, and how do we make sure they get the maximum credits that they can for the work and courses that they've completed? Credit for prior learning, the expansion of military credit, and of course, academic scheduling that will work with them. We also need to be asking our adult learners what their needs are. It's been a while since we had the Division of Continuing Ed at community colleges in Massachusetts, but at that time there were separate divisions. There was a day division and an evening division, and that evening division often had replication of services so that students could be served well into the afternoon, into evening at 7 o'clock, to be able to make sure those students, as they were going to class, got advising, got financial aid, got all the things that they need. How do we ensure that the adults that are going to be so important to the future of our enrollment get the services that they are required? And on top of that, how do we create virtual community building and career-focused engagement activities so that those students who are taking courses online feel connected to this institution? Students who are in dual enrollment feel connected to this institution. And how do we make sure that we have an evening schedule and all the services that they need to be successful? Next slide, Ben. Objective 4 is really about looking at basic needs support, and we have continually done that, as you know. We're exploring now the opportunity of Child Watch and child care resources, any kind of housing assistance we may be able to provide. Food security has been a big one with the expansion of the pantries and also the hot meal service through our partnership with a foundation that we're working with that seems to be going really well. Student transportation and emergency assistance. How do we continue in a time when the federal government and the state government may not be able to provide some of the basic needs that our students have? How do we continue to do that as an institution and do that in a way that supports those students, their mental health, their physical health, and their ability to do work in our classes? We want to continue under Goal C to create that strong sense of belonging that was recognized at Professional Days through the experimental work that we have done that has been so incredibly successful with pedagogy of real talk, with the opportunities that we have with the community vibrancy framework to make sure that students feel connected to the institution, and that we try and improve student, family, and community engagement so that communities feel like we are their community college. And we want to make sure that we create opportunities for information to flow from the community to us to inform and support institutional priorities through something called the Presidential Community Advisory Council, be able to expand opportunities focused on community engagement, continue to support the great work that's done in civic learning and engagement to make sure that we get students out into the community, providing leadership opportunities and connection to our nonprofits and the communities that we serve, and to be clear about what the metrics are and how all of this work impacts those RISE metrics that are so important to the college. The second objective under this goal about fostering a strong sense of belonging is about improving and expanding student spaces. And here it says student common spaces, but I'd call that all student spaces. It's the classrooms that students take courses in. It's the hallways. It's the community spaces that we've created for students, both at the Student Center in Bedford and in Lowell. It's the opportunity for us to really examine utilization for where students can feel that they're part of something other than individually driving in and taking a class or being connected to a club. How can they feel connected to a larger community and have the appropriate study and hangout spaces that they need to do that effectively so that they can be engaged as students as well? And how do we create an engaged kind of student feedback mechanism to get their input about this work? Next slide. The third objective under that direction is really about looking at what the co-curricular programming of the college is, to really emphasize community building and career development. And there's already extraordinary work going on in our co-curricular area. But how do we do a better job of aligning that with what we need to do with career development? And how do we do a better job of making sure that those networking events are created for students across academic programs so they can connect with alums and with people who are already working in the field so they can see themselves in the managers and the leaders that are out there in their community, to make sure that they have aspiration, to create guest speaker series, and to make sure that we have volunteer and service learning fairs so that just like us here at the institution, that they have an opportunity to give back to their community, and that we do that through co-curricular programming that's relevant to them and really important. So this is really about aligning the curricular with the co-curricular, especially around community building and career development. And again, remarkable work already underway in that area. Strategic direction 2 is really about making sure that there's future-ready learning and career pathways and an opportunity for us to redefine what learning looks like at Middlesex. And I think that faculty and staff who have been at this institution for a while know that in order to be relevant to students, in order to be effective, in order to understand our student population, we are constantly reinventing ourselves, and we are recreating a learning experience that integrates both technology, career readiness, and community partnerships. And goal A is really about access and affordability, which is still important. If we think about the things that have changed in the work that we've done, the definition of student success has changed over time, but what has not changed is the access agenda that's still important. Who are the communities we are not serving? Who are we leaving behind? How do we make sure that we have the schedule and the advanced delivery systems for our students to meet the diverse learner needs of what we're seeing, and making sure that we continue to have the incredible quality, that we have at this institution that we're also proud of. And that's for all modalities. And so objective one is really about making sure that we look at the schedule and we're balancing the instructional delivery in terms of what we are offering, and that when we offer an adult student to come back to school in the evening, that they can actually complete the program that they're interested in. And evening programs, weekend programs, online programs continue to grow, and that will provide some additional modality effectiveness in a number of areas. And that we have to be sure that the experience that they're getting is second to none and no different from what they would get on the ground in a face-to-face experience that they would happen during the day, during the week here, even though they may be in a more condensed format. Second objective is really about making sure that we can increase all the efforts for professional development to make sure that we're doing evidence-based teaching and learning strategies. And there's so much going on. We are so fortunate that we have a remarkably strong scholarship of teaching and learning experience here at the institution with great leaders and great participation, that we have a professional development area that continues to be responding to whatever is new out in higher ed, and how do we make sure that we get people the resources and the tools that they need, that you can be connected to workshops, whether they're here or online or somewhere at a conference, how to be able to, more importantly, take the excellence of the work that's being done and showcase that work, much like we did with this last professional day. We talked and you got to see some great examples of career integrated learning that's happening across this institution. And it's amazing, the variety, the intensity, and the passion that's been brought to this work. How do we do a better job of hosting annual teaching excellence programs showcasing innovative practices? Because they're here, they're happening every day, they're happening in our classrooms. Our faculty are doing a remarkable job of being innovative, and how do we continue to showcase and applaud that work? Because it's critical work for the future of the institution. We need to ensure student preparation for a variety of instructional deliveries. That means that, as many of you have pointed out, every student that takes an online course is not necessarily prepared to do one. So how do we do a better job of making sure they're prepared, and that we've set that up to make sure that there's a learning readiness module for all students? And how do we make sure that we have the support, a lot of the supports that we brought to bear when we went completely online in a COVID environment, need to live on for those 33% of our students who are taking almost exclusively online courses, and also for the students who are taking online courses as part and parcel of their schedule, that many faculty, full-time and part-time, are teaching here for the convenience of our students. So really important for us to make sure that we are attending to a variety of instructional deliveries. And that's not easy to do at an institution of this size with 2 campuses. So this is not something that just the provost does or the academic deans do. It requires good and qualitative thinking from the department chairs, thinking about an academic program and how it gets completed. Are we thinking clearly about mini-mesters and whether or not people and students could be taking more courses in that shortened environment and being able to succeed in them? What does winter session look like? What does summer session look like? All of those pieces fit together to make sure that the delivery methods for instruction are top-notch here and that we have the supports for students. We know in Objective 4 that OER has made a huge difference. Your volunteerism, your ability to do that, to make low-cost materials for our students, has been stellar and needs to continue to be, because students only have a $1,200. If they're accessing Free Community College, they get $1,200 to support all of their courses. So keeping cost materials low, making sure that we have OER and access for students, and what can we do? What's the next level of OER to be able to do for our students so that we can really tout the amazing work that's going on at the institution? We want to make sure that we keep up with the work with the institutional student learning outcomes, and we want to deepen that integration in curricular and co-curricular experiences. The Gen Ed committee is already hard at work, as you all participated in the discussion this fall. How do we make sure that our definition of the person that needs to go out into the workforce or transfer to a four-year institution is reinvented and reviewed, and that we are doing great work? And because of Assessment Day and because of your focus and the work that we've done here, this is an area that is a particular strength for the institution. How do we make sure we continue to update that work that we are doing, both in Gen Ed, for the rubrics that we're using, and also for the co-curricular work that we're doing to support what's happening in the classroom? Go B is really about strengthening career readiness through really providing more and more students a work-based learning opportunity and partnership. And so to take a look at increasing the number of employer and partner engagement, we have set up the Office of Career Integrated Learning with a staff that is out there meeting additional partners for us every day to be able to create opportunities for our students. And how do we partner with the Office of Career Integrated Learning to make sure that your particular program or your course has the opportunity to give that student a work-based learning experience, a simulation, a shadowing, an opportunity to hear from alums, to hear from extraordinary people that are already working in the field. There's so many levels and ways that we could do this. And we heard at Professional Day from Hannah say not every program and not every course is going to have the same level of career integrated learning. Not every student is going to have the same work-based learning opportunity. Because of who our students are and what they do and how complicated their lives are, we are responsible for creating a variety of different engagement activities for them that are connected to the world of work so they are well prepared for it when they leave us. And that includes, renewing our energy around advisory boards, looking at employer satisfaction surveys and making them a good part of our graduate preparedness, and really making sure that we have appreciation events for those employers that are part and parcel of those partnerships. And how do we continue to expand that and let them know they're such an important part of our education. Objective 2 is about expanding career integrated learning throughout all academic programs. This is a tall order, but when you hear about what's happening to the liberal arts, when you hear about people who are criticizing the fact that liberal arts are not as important as career-oriented areas, that is not true. Many people on this Zoom have a liberal arts degree. I'm one of them. I think there are many of you that know that you found a particular field that you were excited about, you spent some time getting a degree in it. It did not stop you from having a successful career. In fact, it gave you all the critical thinking skills and all the creative skills that you needed to be successful somewhere else. And so the idea of really creating that throughout all academic programs is an aspiration, but I think it's something that we can all turn our attention to be able to see how we can get students who are in a variety of different fields. We have amazing programs here in the liberal arts. How do we get those students connected to work-based activities so that they can see that there is something beyond what they are currently studying? And what are the possibilities, the endless possibilities for someone who is well prepared in the liberal arts? And we want to make sure that we create the IBS courses and the classes that can help support that kind of work, making sure that we develop employer-sponsored projects. That's something we haven't explored too much, though we have a number of faculty who have done great work with employer-based projects as part of their courses, and make sure that we continue to bring in alumni and employees from every academic program area so students get to see successful individuals that they can aspire to, that can be their mentors, and that they can be connected to outside of the institution once they leave or while they're still in it. Objective 3 is something you're hearing about and reading about all over the place, which is the concept of apprenticeship degrees, the opportunities of how are we going to experiment with this. We've already done some amazing grant work to be able to do this. We're going to build entire programs with connection to hospitals who have given us space and been able to give us the expertise to develop those programs. So those partnerships are critically important. And how do we prepare for a world that really allows, starting in this July, for Workforce Pell? That's Pell grants that are available for short-term training based on clock hours. We've never done anything with clock hours here. Massachusetts is way behind in terms of what other states are doing for the recognition of clock hour training. It's not just about credits, it is about clock hours. And in fact, there are programs across the country that are viable, academically sound, and require real excellence that can be part of Workforce Pell. So it isn't just non-credit, it's credit as well. So getting a better understanding of what Workforce Pell can do to expand our employer base and our opportunities for students here at the institution is really important. And that starts with developing new partnerships for apprenticeship degrees. And apprenticeship degrees are oftentimes degrees that are made available to somebody who is an incumbent worker, someone that's already out in the workforce but works in a lower level job, and they aspire to do something else within that organization, but they don't have the path and the meaningful way to do that. They would have to step away from their job and go to school. And for many adults, it's impossible for them to do that. So this is a way to create an apprenticeship degree that respects the work that they are currently doing, gives them credit appropriately for academic work, and builds a stackable pathway for them to go to that next level, to be able to use what they're currently doing and then build academic programs, take classes, get the kind of on-the-job experience and academic training that will prepare them for the next level of work. That again, increases economic mobility, impacts communities, impacts families, and impacts organizations. We want to make sure that we continue to increase student employment readiness and workforce responsiveness. That continues across the institution. We have a workforce development area of the college, but workforce development doesn't sit in one area anymore. This is making sure that we have a regular schedule of opportunities for students to be prepared through workshops, to be able to really look at the NACE career readiness competencies so that when a student leaves us, we know they are ready for the world of work and they're not intimidated by that first interview. They're not intimidated by that first experience, and they're a Middlesex student that is well prepared to go into the workforce. No matter whether they're going here or they're going to a transfer program, those workforce readiness skills, they're going to have them when they eventually go to work. And we're responsible for building that in a scaffolded way. We want to continue to expand that alumni network with graduates and current students, and also to really explore the possibility, especially on our Bedford campus, of the fact that a Polytechnic high school program on the Bedford campus could maximize our investment in space. This is a fairly new area for a lot of institutions. Northern Essex is also looking at the ability to offer and create a partnership with Whittier Tech to be able to have Whittier Tech directly on their campus. For those of you who are familiar, on our Lowell campus, we had one of the first charter schools in the entire state, the Lowell Middlesex Academy Charter School, for students who are unsuccessful in high school. And that charter school is still successful and growing to this day with 130 students in it. That's a partnership that we started decades ago and it continues to thrive. So how is it we use some of the technical programs that we currently have or are developing and provide access routes for students who cannot access vocational education? You might know that there's a waiting list for vocational education across this state. So how do we position ourselves to be able to provide Polytechnic high school opportunities for students with the amazing facilities that we are building and the tremendous faculty who really are serving those students, sometimes through dual enrollment, but most importantly, creating schools within schools can sometimes create enrollment opportunities we had not thought of before and use facilities in a way that makes it more advantageous for us to be able to continue to develop space. So we go for capital skills money when we go for capital bond bills, and when we go to private donors, we can talk about the fact that we are serving a wide variety of learners. And that includes students who are in traditional high schools or in vocational schools that are interested in programs that we currently have that they don't have. How do we make that an early college or dual enrollment pathway for them? So really important exploration of feasibility study. Feasibility study is ongoing at this time. Objective 5 is really about short-term training and articulation, workforce Pell opportunities, micro-credentials. A lot of work has been done here. A lot of opportunities for accelerating 8-week and 12-week programs, and ability for us to really market those to adults because the adult population is going to continue to grow and be important to us. Objective C is about creating and maintaining a centralized partnership database. We have lots of partners. All of them are connected to different academic programs or different areas of the college. How do we create one database that really can serve all of us? Really important for us to think about that so that we don't have duplication in our efforts. Goal C is about academic pathways and transfer opportunities and taking existing dual enrollment partnerships and turning them into early college partnerships. Early college comes with financial support from the state. And so therefore critically important from a financial stability opportunity to think about those current high school partners and how those parents and families and schools are currently paying for those dual enrollment, whereby early college could do that. So how do we consider the conversion of non-early college programs to early college programs? But also we've talked before about strengthening concurrent enrollment through the NACEP accreditation, the ability to really update our transfer articulation agreements with four-year schools and with high schools, and to create transfer maps so students can actually see what credits are available to them so they have no duplication of credit. That will continue to be important as people are finding affordable ways to get higher education today. We're going to refocus the definition of student success to really talk about economic mobility. We have already started to do that work. You all understand a subgroup of folks are working on an ATD community vibrancy framework, and we're very excited about that because we're going to be focusing on the adult population, which is so critical for us and for the college's economic future, and also for our efforts around economic and social mobility, with a lot of objectives there and activities under that refocused definition. The third strategic direction should not be a surprise to anyone, but the importance of making sure that we have sustainable growth. And I've talked about this a lot, that financial resilience is more important than ever before. You are seeing across this country discussions of colleges that are merging, colleges that are closing, especially small liberal arts colleges, colleges that are taking over academic programs from other colleges. I'm talking about La Brea. I mean, there's a lot of things that you're seeing in the paper that's currently happening. We are a strong and independent community college amongst 14 other community colleges in the system. So how do we make sure that our financial resilience keeps us strong? Our accrediting body asks us to do annual reports now. The Department of Higher Ed is going to ask us to do annual financial reports. We are being monitored more than ever before about that financial stability. And we've made sure at the administrative level and the great work that comes out of the finance area to make sure that the college is really in good stead. So we try and respond to all of your needs through this budget process. We have done a really good job of responding to 99% of your needs. And as we continue to grow as an institution, how do we do that in a responsible way? And one of the ways we do that is to revise our institutional grant strategy. So how do we step away from some of the federal areas that are more complicated for us? And how do we look at creating a process for pre-approval for grants that can ensure institutional capacity? Sometimes we get ourselves too far out there in a grant application, and we need to know exactly what's going to be required of the institution. And so we're putting together a grant management council that's going to, and whatever that's going to be called, that isn't necessarily the term that we will use, but a group of people who are all working on grants to continue to work together to be able to support sort of the awards management and compliance that are required with budgets today and with grants that are becoming more complex than ever before. And to make sure that we have sustainable programs for either the individual employees or the students that are being served, that post-grant funding is part of what happens. Just because money goes away doesn't necessarily mean the students and the need or the employees go away. So how do we figure that out and make sure we have a plan? Objective 2 is really about refocusing advancement efforts to support institutional resilience. And that is about making sure that our advancement office, who does remarkable work, continues to help us make sure that we can continue to have the equipment that we need in these beautiful new sim labs, in our dental hygiene lab, in biotech, in all of our areas. How do we make sure that we have endowments so that we have a campaign that will allow us to continue for decades to come to be able to meet the needs of the accreditation so that we never go through an individual specialized program accreditation and somebody says, you have amazing faculty, you have amazing curriculum, you have amazing outcomes, you have really shoddy facilities. How do we make sure that we change that and change the dynamic of the equipment so our students get the 21st century education that they deserve? We want to make sure we look at long-term financial stability and the college's resilience. So how do we make sure that we look at adequate reserves, balancing budget, looking at scenario-based things for multiple years as this gets more complicated with Free Community College and with changing federal regulations around Pell and with grant funds and loans that we have really kept students from to a great degree. How do we make sure that we have the internal financial stewardship and transparency so that we are accountable to all of the different constituencies that we need to be accountable to? That we have to make sure that we can assess and mitigate financial risk, strong internal controls, again, areas that we've had really strong audits and great work by our finance area, and that's all a tribute to all of you, those of you who are budget managers who have done an extraordinary job. We do a tremendous amount with a small amount of money, and we'll continue to do that. I also think that the operational efficiency and transparency of the institution is really about making sure we have professional development for people so they become better budget managers, that they can understand better how to work within the parameters of what is the rulemaking that happens in the state government and the federal government. That we want to make sure we continue to meet the needs of individuals and areas for professional development funding. We want to continue to grow our leadership internally and externally through opportunities. We want to make sure that we have peer mentoring networks to support our employees and that we continue employee initiatives and wellness programs. In Objective 2, we want to talk about student supports and services and infrastructure related to our RISE metrics, because those metrics are how the state views us. It's how the Department of Higher Ed views us. Many states have gone to performance-based funding. We want to make sure that we are appropriately ready with a strong enrollment management and student success strategic plan, that we want to make sure that we continue to have recognition as an institution that has aspirations for creating their leadership structure and the work that we've done, just like recently as a leader college, to be able to make sure that people know that Middlesex is a strong and resilient and financially stable institution, all working towards a set of RISE metrics that we all agree to for our students. We want to continue to do great job with data collection, data literacy, and data application. We have a strong IR department, stronger than ever before, that is giving us tools every single day to make our decision-making processes better. How do we continue to do that, and how do we democratize that and continue to put this in the hands of everyone that needs it to make a good local decision? We want to make sure that we are creating a technology advisory committee, that even though FSA has identified that this is not an area that they are particularly focused on as a committee structure, that committee structure is critically important to support change management for technology at the institution. And we are going to do everything we can to assess that change management to make sure that our IT resources are what we need to make sure to continue to support faculty, students, and staff. We're going to do an audit around our technology that we currently have and what we may need in the future to make sure that we are a strong and resilient institution technologically. We're going to continue to invest in capacity building, and that means building in our buildings, building in our technology infrastructure. The North Star is the facilities master plan that you are probably all very sick of hearing about, and the decarbonization plan. But that ability to really leverage DCAM, to leverage state dollars, to leverage private donors and grant dollars are all part of creating an internal triangulation that really gives us the return on investment to get operational improvements that you can see every day in classrooms, that you can see every day in our labs, that you can see every day in our student spaces and in your offices. And the opportunity to move to our next topic in a couple of minutes, once we take some questions, is really to develop and execute a comprehensive AI strategic plan with an opportunity to review those cycles regularly and to create environmental sustainability. We know that we are in a very unique time in history with what's happening with AI, and we know that our students are using it. We know that our faculty and staff are using it. How do we create policies and plans that will really be aligned with what we want to have happen? But we are still an innovator. We still are entrepreneurs. We're an institution that likes to lead. And this is an area that, thanks to the work of Peter Shea and many people at this institution, that we are leading, both statewide and nationally, in our connections to integrate in our computer science area, AI. But how do we integrate AI across the curriculum in a way that's going to be meaningful as a skill, so students know how to use the possibilities of what AI will become, because they're going to be entering an AI-enabled workforce, and we need to be prepared. So that is, as I said, text-heavy. It is also content-laden, but it is tremendous work, and it's been work that's happened, that we started with a professional day and started with some simple questions about what's missing from our current plan and where do we need to go. And in our changing environment, what do we need to do to pivot to be more effective as an institution? I think this document does that and is incredibly responsive to what's changing in our environment locally and nationally. And I'm happy to take any questions or comments that you may have at this time. Knowing that our time is short, though, I'm also going to offer you the opportunity to, at any time, reach out to me about what you see in the strategic plan, any concerns that you may have. again, a lot of the activities are initial activities that need to get, and a lot of them are very general spaces. So you may not see in it your own particular area that was mentioned during professional day or during your conversations, but I think we tried to capture the high level strategic areas that are critical for the college going forward, and want to know your thoughts about the plan and any concerns that you may have. So Beth, let's take a few minutes for questions before we turn to Peter.
Chat is open. So if you would like to ask a question or make a comment, you can. Also, you can ask your question by raising your Zoom hand, and we will call on you.
Not a quiet crowd. I think there's just a lot to digest. There's a lot there. Yeah, I think what I would say to people is you have to sort of think, as you look at some of this, how does that impact me? How does that impact my area? Because all of these, all three of these pillars are going to impact individual areas um, across the institution. And that's what any good strategic plan does. It positions us for the future. It positions us for opportunities. It positions us to do what's best for our students. And of course, all of it requires change, which most people don't really like. Some people say they like change, but not everybody likes it.
I'm not getting any chats, Phil.
Okay, so I'm going to make that opportunity to you available to certainly come on down, send an email, send a comment, anything you may like. We'll be shopping this last version of the plan around in several places. So I encourage you to share this widely, and it will be shared more widely in FSA and other areas. But I want to again thank you and appreciate all of you because this plan was organic and it grew not only from our concerns about changes in the environment, but things that we know that we needed to do to move forward as an institution in this rapidly changing time. So I'm very grateful to all of you for your input. And I'd also want to say I'm very grateful to Peter for his leadership in the work that he's doing with AI. And Peter's not going to bore you with every aspect of the strategic AI plan, much like I just did with our college strategic plan. But I think he's going to give you some high level highlights about some of the amazing work that's already happening at the institution, how we have become an institutional leader in this work, thanks to Peter and the work of his group, and also about hoping that you will see yourself in this AI plan as well. So, Peter, I turn it over to you.
Thanks, Phil. Hi, everyone. Like Phil said, I will not go over every detail, but I hope to give you the next few minutes a kind of overview of where we've come over the past planning year as we begin to move into a 3-year plan, which will help integrate the college, help integrate AI into the college operations in a way that serves our strategic plan. As Phil pointed out, we're in a time of great change, and AI is playing a very big role in it. He emphasized the fact that, the college is an economic engine. And I don't think any organization can be an economic engine in these times without reference to AI. It's permeating everything we're doing. This college was unique in the fact that it began looking at AI several years before generative AI made its debut across the country. And as Phil's pointed out, we have a history here at the college of having a very innovative culture. And certainly, Middlesex has begun to be seen nationally as a leader among the community colleges in terms of understanding how AI impacts our mission and how it can be used to enhance our work towards our strategic goals and preparing our students for the workforce. So if you give me a moment, I'm just going to bring up a few slides here, which give you a kind of a broad overview of the plan that has been developed. Okay, let's see. Structure. So here. One second. Okay, there we go. All right. Took me a few moments there. Okay, one of the things I want to emphasize at the very beginning is that the plan, like any strategic plan or auxiliary plan at Middlesex, is aligned with our institutional values, and that our approach to AI is connected to our work on advancing equity and student success and workforce readiness. When we first began laying the groundwork for this plan, we looked at the ATD created a framework for AI integration, which we looked at very carefully. And the 8 elements here can be seen from the slide, which are strategic leadership, ethical AI governance, assess AI user impact, build staff capabilities, faculty engagement, redesign curriculum, workforce alignment, and student success. All those elements have been worked into the plan, which you'll be able to peruse on your own now that you have a link to it. The guiding principles behind the plan are that it's very equity centered. As many of us know, we've spent many years talking about the impact of the digital divide and how that impacts our students. With a technology like AI, the digital divide can either be closed or greatly increased, creating a digital abyss. And so we're very keenly aware that our students need to understand how AI is going to shape their world and give them the skills to use it in both their personal and professional lives. So any school that is serious about equity has to have some sort of strategy around integrating AI. We are not going to simply grab hold of every shiny new thing related to AI. Instead, we are going to look very carefully and we are going to initiate pilots before scaling up anything. We're going to do annual impact reports and look at these pilots and see whether or not they're worth continuing. If they are, we will begin to scale them up. If we don't see the impact, we will simply let them go. And when we do this, we will do it in a very transparent way, honoring our tradition of shared governance. Recently, the FSA AI Ad Hoc Committee was created to help oversee and discuss this work and make sure that all voices from across the college had a hand in shaping it. We also have been working this year in terms of AI faculty fellows who've been involved in conversations and work around how curriculum might be redesigned in response to the needs created by AI. And again, we are always looking at anything that is sustainable. One of my favorite quotes is that innovation isn't innovation if it's not sustainable. So we're going to be looking at adoption of AI that we can actually integrate into our culture. So starting in the fall, we will technically begin what is year one of this plan. Year one is about capacity building based upon the ATD model. That means we'll be focusing on clear institutional policies for ethical and appropriate AI use. And we'll be adopting a framework for AI literacy, fluency, and agility. Many of you have heard the phrase AI literacy. At Middlesex, we are adopting a more complex model where literacy is understanding what generative AI is and how it works. Fluency is how to use AI tools effectively. And agility is about using it in ways that are creative. In other words, someone who's using AI, who's demonstrating AI agility, is someone who understands how to use AI in novel ways. And that is certainly the objective, what we want to achieve with our students, our faculty, and our staff. We will collect data on the impact of our AI pilots and see how they impact our student success, work, and equity. We will together look at any potential new AI initiatives and assess their impact. We have already established community of practices supporting faculty and administrators using AI work. And we've begun designing instructional assignments that integrate AI ethically and transparently through mini grant work. That is going to be the focus of year one. Year two is about implementation. We will start looking very carefully at those initiatives we began that are proven workable and then begin to scale them up. We're going to be very carefully looking at how AI curriculum is aligned with workforce priorities. Earlier this year, we began a collaboration with MIT around creating curriculum that aligns with how AI is going to be used in the workforce. This is the first of a 3-year collaboration, and they have identified us as preferred partners and they are very eager to continue working going forward with us. Again, year 2 will focus on scaling what works and looking at the evidence. Year 3 will be about institutionalization and sustainability. We will be looking at effective AI-supported practices instead of teaching, advising, and other activities and support workflows. To that end, I'll be working with various departments to see how AI impacts their work. So I'll be going by department, try to understand how I can best support their work around AI integration. Our AI initiatives will be aligned with regular budgeting and planning. Again, sustainability here. The strategic direction 3 about sustainability is a very important part of this plan, as well as strategic direction 2, which is about forging future ready learning and career pathways. And again, any AI initiative that turns out not to be impactful, we're happy to discontinue it. And this will reflect on the ATD's emphasis on institutionalization and long-term impact. So again, I just wanted to give a very quick overview and reiterate what Phil said, that anyone with questions either now or later on, feel free to reach out to me. As you know, I'm a pretty easy person to get in touch with. But let me stop right now and give opportunity for any questions.
Well, that was a beautiful brief overview, Peter, in comparison to my lengthy presentation. But you may have areas of the college, or you may feel like you're reading about AI that's happening in your particular area, or you've not had an opportunity to connect with Peter yet. So I would encourage you to, ask your questions. You have a sense of where the college is going, the Achieving the Dream report. And actually, at some point, Peter, I don't know that I have it, but it would be great to also make available to folks that original Achieving the Dream plan. I was part of a conversation about a year ago with about 10 other presidents from across the country at Achieving the Dream, reviewing that Achieving the Dream plan and whether it was comprehensive enough. And it actually is a really good overview of how AI is going to impact multiple areas of the college, which we've really asked Peter to sort of respond to. And so, again, it's not everything all at once. That's not the way it works. That's not the way any plan works. It will be over the 3 years. But if you have specific questions or areas of concern, this is a good time, because you'd be surprised how other people like hearing some of those as well. So if you have questions or thoughts, please raise them. Thank you,
I
Peter.
just posted the ATD report there in the chat.
It's a quiet group today. It's Monday, so I don't think they're used to, there's no critical conversations usually on Monday. People may not, they're still recovering from the weekend, or they can't believe it's 62 degrees outside. And so there they are sitting in front of a computer and cannot wait to go out and get some of their vitamin E for the day, I guess.
I did have a comment come through from Carrie Miller. I know I'm not alone in my concerns for the environmental impact of AI. Some students have even refused to use anything with AI in the title for this reason. What are we doing to consider these implications?
Students, if they have a requirement from a particular course, cannot refuse to use it. I do understand the environmental impact piece, and we are well aware of it. As you well know, we have the decarbonization, we have a sensitivity, and we talk about sustainability. We have a sensitivity to that work as well. And so I think that there's a balancing act in all of this. You're going to have students that are going to rail against this, and you have students that are using it literally every 10 minutes. So that's going to be there. I'm not sure, Peter, if there's a good way to be able to respond to that, other than to say that your syllabus is key. And I would say that Peter has provided some templates for folks to be able to use in their syllabus.
Yeah, we have had a vigorous conversation since day one about the environmental impact of it, and certainly that's part of the national conversation. To tell you the truth, I've never known of a technology in my life where people took such a serious concern about the environmental impact, which is very good. it's probably something that we should have been considered earlier on with other technologies that we've adopted. So I see it as a form of cultural maturity. I do know that there's a lot of work being put into trying to lessen the footprint of AI. Is it perfected? No. But it's certainly moving in the right direction because of the attention that's been given to it. I would say to students, because AI is being integrated into almost every software program there is, you are probably using AI right now without even realizing it.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the question because it's come up many times, and I think Peter's response is fair in the sense that deep appreciation for students, those students who have recognized the challenge in this. I would ask those students, in a non-confrontive way, to some degree, how there are other aspects of their daily lives that are impacting the environment that I think they may or may not be aware of as well. Because I think there's a lot of information that is out there about um, the energy needs driven by the use of AI. But I think, clarifying for students the fact that they are at an institution that already uses AI, that there are several areas of software that is driven by AI, that it is going to be in the workforce. And I think the opportunity for us to be sensitive to this issue, it's not, Peter, remind me of the institution that gave an AI license to every single one of its students. And is it Dartmouth?
The Northeastern did that.
Yeah.
That was one of them, and I believe the California system gave a lot of
Yeah.
licenses too.
Gave everybody a license without any thought to the process of how they were going to use it, to what degree they were going to use it. So I think there's a calloused way to approach this, and I would say that we're going to be more deliberate about it. And Carrie, again, you're right. There is no easy answer to your question, but I deeply appreciate students having and bringing this concern. It is an important part of this conversation every time. It is an important thing for us to keep in the back of our mind. And I think as we continue to see how this plan grows, I hope that we can find a way to sort of assess the increasing impact of AI, not just on curriculum, not just on your daily work or their daily work, but on what that means from an energy consumption point of view. Because I think it's been an under-examined area, and one that perhaps, Peter, we have to consider in the plan, adding some notes or some areas of maybe we could find ways to. And I don't exactly have the answer to how to do this yet, but we ought to consider how we continue to assess the energy demands of AI and balance that with the needs of giving appropriate tools to faculty, staff, and students.
Agreed, agreed. And I would add too that yeah, at Middlesex, when I give talks, I talk about three models, which is the ostrich, the crow, and the falcon. The ostriches were the people who ignored AI and pretended it wasn't impacting what they were doing. And the falcons were the ones who were rushing out, buying licenses for everyone and not considering the larger impact. And I said the crows were the ones who stopped and carefully experimented and picked things up and waited. And then after experimentation, slowly adopted things that are critical. And I thought that was the best model. And I think that's the model that we follow at Middlesex. We are very much aware of the environmental impact, but we are also aware that we're increasingly hearing from representatives in the workforce that AI is becoming a crucial aspect of all sorts of work, and that they're expecting our graduates and our students to have some fluency with these tools so that they will be employable. So again, like Phil said, it's quite a balancing act, but I think we're up to it.
Thank you, Peter. Eli shared a question here. With the pace that AI is developing, things could look very different in 3 years. How will we plan to reassess as things change over time?
Great.
Well, adaption is built into the plan. I mean, it's very hard to do any kind of plan around AI without acknowledging the unique speed at which this technology has moved and evolved. So we are always respond. The plan is built in a way that we're alert and responsive to any changes. But everything we do is aligned with our strategic mission. That is our North Star here. So any changes in AI will first be considered in terms of how that impacts our strategic directions, and then the AI plan would then respond in turn.
Yeah. It's again, another great question, Eli. And I think we've seen that with our own ability to adapt with the strategic plan that was supposed to be 22 through 27. And we saw a real need to, and I keep using the term pivot, but significantly change direction based on what's happening around us. And I think we always have to be willing and able to adapt. And in fact, I envision that while we've asked Peter to complete a 3-year plan just so we can model out potentially how we might be able to go after this rather gargantuan sort of task and chunk it out in a way that it's almost artificial in the way that it's articulated. I don't mean, Peter, to say the work that you just did was artificial, but I think you know what I mean, is that you shoot for whatever you can and you develop a plan, but there's so much that's going to change. And this is going to be one area that Eli's right. We may find a year from now that what we said about what's going to happen in year 2 and 3 may have already had to happen, or components of it had, or that we may be in an entirely different ball game, and we're unaware of it at this time. So it's going to, more than any other plan, require real responsiveness and agility. And that's tough for us. Higher ed isn't always as agile as it needs to be, but I think we've approached this area in a way that we have with many areas at the college, and that is to work with the innovators, work with the willing, start with small pilots, innovations, opportunities, people who are interested in exploring. And as you well know, this plan does not determine in each of your areas of the college and where you work and what you will do now with AI. That's not how this plan was developed. It was developed to think through a process of how we might be able to show growth and exploration. And I have a feeling that it will change many times over the course of the next 3 years. So it's a great observation.
Alejandra Mendez would like to know how MCC is ensuring that the tools we implement do not mine student and employee data.
Part of our cybersecurity training this year specifically emphasizes the role that AI plays, and to bring to the foremost attention issues around FERPA. That's one of the things that when I saw institutions creating large licenses, I thought, have they done FERPA training at this point? So we are very mindful of that, and any policy, any syllabus, anything should always address the fact that when you're putting things into an AI, you should make sure that the data is not something that should be publicly shared out, and that when you're using certain AI tools, you have the ability to turn off the ability to train on the data. So that's part of our overall cautious approach to it. We believe that it has to be used, but we have to do the training around it first and make people aware of the fact that, again, we have organizational obligations to be very careful around our data. And so everything we do with AI, indeed, or any kind of internet-based usage, should always be mindful of keeping an eye on the data. So that's policy going forward.
Yeah, and I think our procurement area, certainly Christina Kelly knows that this is an area that we look at very carefully as we look at contracts for any new software. We're trying to be particularly attentive to it, and I know that it's time, and I've just spoken to Kayla recently about the fact that, it's with everything that's happening with the new accessibility law and with this, that we need to revisit FERPA training for people so that they have a firm sense of what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate. And again, we go through a cycle where we feel like we've trained everybody, or everyone's familiar with federal law at an institution, and yet we have so many new employees that come and go. How do we keep up with that? And so, the FERPA training could be a partnership between the Dean of Enrollment Management and the professional development area, so that people have specific sensitivity. I know that Peter constantly as he's working with groups and individuals, is well aware of that particular concern. And I know it's an issue that's been presented at other higher education institutions where those who jumped in with both feet first in rather dramatic ways, as Peter has identified, in large scale ways, found that it was problematic because they've not clearly looked at the licenses that they were utilizing and making sure that there was no opportunity to share sensitive data. So appreciate that question as well.
There are no other questions or comments in chat at this time.
Well, I think both Peter and I, first of all, I want to thank Peter for his work and for his leadership over the last year or so in this new role. It seemed important that we have an academic administrator who had professional development experience leading this effort and developing this plan. And so I appreciate not only the work he's doing here, but the reputation that he has established for us throughout the state and across the country. Peter's had an opportunity to speak and represent Middlesex Community College very favorably in amongst AI leaders because there's a lot of noise out there, and I really appreciate the approach that Peter has taken, and I think it's because of his years as a part-time faculty member and as a professional development professional. He understands the challenges of implementation for faculty, and he understands the nature of what we're attempting to do to create efficiencies at the institution. So I think that Peter's, a perfect example of somebody who understands the balancing act really well and has been attentive to that in this plan. And so I feel real confident in the direction that we're taking with this. But again, Peter welcomes your comments about the plan. And in fact, I think has the plan gone out to everybody as well, Peter? The more detailed plan?
Yes, everyone at the beginning, so everyone should have a copy of the plan.
Great. So at FSA, we want to make sure that goes up on the FSA availability and it's available, folks. And I would remind anyone that's been on this critical conversation that these are taped. I don't know whether people love listening to double headers. I think it's probably something you can listen to while you're cleaning off your desk in your office and still get a great deal out of the conversation. But I encourage people who that may be interested in this topic in reaching out to Peter. If you have an area that is currently engaged in thinking about efficiencies or use of AI, I would encourage you to reach out to Peter, and just as a thought partner in the process will be really important. And again, any comments about the college's plans going forward in terms of our strategic areas, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And again, this plan from the college's perspective, for the college's strategic plan, was developed and designed by all of you. So I appreciate all your input, and it always makes for a stronger document when we have a level of engagement from faculty and staff. So thank you all very much. And if there are no further questions, we're going to thank you for taking part of a Monday as an additional catch up on our critical conversation. I much appreciate all of you taking the time to be informed and to learn more. And the plans are out there, and you can certainly feel free to share them widely, as we will. They are in draft form at this point, I would remind you all. And again, your comments and your feedback will be duly noted as they were today in some of the comments and questions specifically from Carrie and others. So thank you so much for your time. Have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you at the next critical conversation.
Thank you, everyone.